verse number 40. O unconquerable one, when you spoke about Bhagavata Dharma, which is the uncontaminated religious system for achieving the shelter of your lotus feet, that was your victory. Persons who have no material desires, like the Kumaras, who are self-satisfied sages, worship you to be liberated from material contamination. In other words, they accept the process of Bhagavata Dharma to achieve shelter at your lotus feet. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, as stated by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anya Vilasita Sunyam, Gyanakarmadhyanavrtam, Anukulyena Krishnana Silanam, Bhaktir Uttamam. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desires for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. The Narada Pancharatra also says, Sarvapadi Vinirmuktam Tatparat Vinam Nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchate. One should be free from all material designations and cleansed of all material contamination. He should be restored to his pure identity, in which he engages his senses in the service of the proprietor of the senses. That is called devotional service. This is also called Bhagavata Dharma. Without material aspirations, one should simply serve Krishna, as advised in Bhagavad Gita, Narada Pancharatra, and Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavata Dharma is the process of religion enunciated by pure devotees, direct representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, like Narada, Sukadeva Goswami, and their humble servants in the disciplic succession. By understanding Bhagavata Dharma, one immediately becomes free from material contamination. Living entities who are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are loitering in this material world suffering. When they are instructed by the Lord Himself about Bhagavata Dharma and they adopt it, that is victory for the Lord, for He then reclaims these fallen souls. A devotee following the principles of Bhagavata Dharma feels very much obliged to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can understand the difference between life without Bhagavata Dharma and life with Bhagavata Dharma, and thus he ever remains obliged to the Lord. Taking to Krishna consciousness and bringing fallen souls to Krishna consciousness is victory for Lord Krishna. It's a nice statement. It's victory for Lord Krishna. Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Ragsaje Ahaituki Pratyata Yayat Master Prasidati. The supreme occupation, Dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. Bhagavata 1.2.6. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is the pure transcendental process of religion. Haripol. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the pure transcendental process of religion. Text 41. Being full of contradictions, all forms of religion, but Bhagavata Dharma work under conceptions of fruitive results and distinctions of you and I and yours and mine. Mm. The followers of Srimad Bhagavatam have no such consciousness. They are all Krishna conscious, thinking that they are Krishna's and Krishna is theirs. There are other low-class religious systems which are contemplated for killing the enemies or the gain of mystic power. And it's interesting, killing the enemies and the gain of mystic power. But such religious systems, being full of passion and envy, are impure and temporary. Because they are full of envy, they are full of irreligion. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Bhagavata Dharma has no contradictions. Conceptions of your religion and my religion are completely absent from Bhagavata Dharma. Bhagavata Dharma means following the orders given by the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Sarvadharmam pratyaja mamekam saranam vraja. God is one and God is for everyone. I like that. God is one and God is for everyone. Therefore, everyone must surrender to God. That is the pure conception of religion. Whatever God orders constitutes religion. Dharmam to Shakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. In Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavata Dharma, there is no question of what you believe and what I believe. Everyone must believe in the Supreme Lord and carry out his orders. Anukulyena Krishnana Sulanam. Whatever Krishna says, whatever God says, should be directly carried out. That is Dharma, religion. If one is actually Krishna conscious, he cannot have any enemies, since his only engagement is to induce others to surrender to Krishna or God. How can he have enemies? If one advocates the Hindu religion, the Muslim religion, the Christian religion, this religion or that religion, there will be conflicts. History shows that the followers of religious systems without a clear conception of God have fought with one another. There are many instances of this in human history, but systems of religion that do not concentrate upon service to the Supreme are temporary and cannot last for a long time because they are full of envy. There are many activities directed against such religious systems, and therefore, one must give up the idea of my belief and your belief. Everyone should believe in God and surrender unto him. That is Bhagavata Dharma. Bhagavata Dharma is not a concocted sectarian belief, for it entails research to find how everything is connected with Krishna. Ishavaisham idam sarvam. According to the Vedic injunctions, sarvam kvad idam Brahman. Brahman, the Supreme, is present in everything. Bhagavata Dharma captures the presence of the Supreme. Bhagavata Dharma does not consider everything in the world to be false. Because everything emanates from the Supreme, nothing can be false. Everything has has some use in the service of the Supreme. For example, we are now dictating into a microphone and recording on a dictating machine. And thus we are finding how the machine can be connected to the Supreme Brahman. Since we are using this machine in the service of the Lord, it is Brahman. This is the meaning of Sarvam Klav Idam Brahman. Everything is Brahman because everything can be used for the service of the Lord, Supreme Lord. Nothing is mithya, false. Everything is factual. A very nice statement. Bhagavata Dharma is called Sarvot Krishna, Sarvot Krishna, the best of all religious systems, because those who follow Bhagavata Dharma are not envious of anyone. Pure Bhagavatas, pure devotees, invite everyone without envy to join the Krishna consciousness movement. A devotee is therefore exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srihidam Sarvabhutanam. He is the friend of all living entities. Therefore, this is the best of all religious systems, whereas so-called religions are meant for a particular type of person who believes in a particular way. Such discrimination has no place in Krishna consciousness or Bhagavata Dharma. If we scrutinize the religious systems, meant for worship of demigods or anyone else but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we will find that they are full of envy and therefore impure. Interesting, very interesting. Text 42. How can a religious system that produces envy of oneself and of others be beneficial for oneself and for them? What is auspicious about following such a system? What is actually to be gained by causing pain to one's own self due to self-envy, and by causing pain to others, one arouses your anger and practices religion. And practices irreligion. Yes, that's the point. Practices irreligion. Purport. Any religious system but the process of Bhagavata Dharma, service as an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is a system of envy of one's own self and of others. For example, there are many systems of religion in which animal sacrifices are recommended. Such animal sacrifices are inauspicious, both for the performer and for the animal. Although one is sometimes permitted to sacrifice an animal before the goddess Kali and eat it instead of purchasing meat from a slaughterhouse, permission to eat meat after a sacrifice in the presence of the goddess Kali is not the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is simply a concession for the miserable person who will not give up eating meat. It is meant to restrict his desire for unrestricted meat eating. Such a religious system is condemned. Therefore, Krishna says, Sarvadharmam prityaja mamekam saranam braja. Give up all other duties and surrender unto me. That is the last word in religion. Sarvadharma prityaja mamekam saranam braja. Give up all other duties and surrender unto me. That is the last word in religion. One may argue that the sacrifices of animals is recommended in the Vedas. This recommendation, however, is a restriction. Uh, without Vedic restrictions on the purchase of meat, people will purchase meat from the market, which will be overflooded with meat shops. Oh boy.
Mhm.
Oh, that's what is going on now anyway.
Mhm.
Overflooded with meat shops. And slaughterhouses will increase. To restrict this, sometimes the Vedas say that one may eat meat after sacrificing an insignificant animal like a goat before goddess Kali. In any case, a system of religion in which animal sacrifices are recommended is inauspicious for those who perform the sacrifices and for the animals. Envious persons who perform ostentatious animal sacrifices are condemned in Bhagavad Gita as follows. Atma Sambhavita Stabda Dana Mana Madan Vita Yajnate Nama Yajnaste Dambain Vidhi Purvakam. Self complacent and always impudent, deluded by wealth and false prestige. They sometimes perform sacrifices in name only, without following any rules or regulations. Sometimes animal sacrifices are performed very gorgeously with grand arrangements for worshiping the goddess Kali. But such festivals, although performed in the name of yajna, are not actually yajna. For yajna means to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, it is recommended that in this age specifically, yajna sankirtana parar vijanti hi sumedasa. Those who have good intelligence satisfy the yajna purusha, Vishnu, by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Envious persons, however, are condemned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as follows. Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodam sha samsrita mam atma paradehisu prad lisanto vyasuka aka tan aham drisita kruran samasresu naradama. Naradama. Shipam ajasram asubam asurish veva yonisu. Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demon becomes envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in his own body and in the bodies of others, and blasphemes against the real religion. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Bhagavad Gita 6.18-19. These persons are condemned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as indicated by the words Tavakupa. A person who commits murder is envious of himself and also the person he has killed. For the result of committing murder is that he will be arrested and hanged. If one transgresses the laws of a man made government, he may escape being killed. He may escape being killed by the state, but one cannot escape the laws of God. A killer of any animal must be killed in his next life by the same animal. This is the law of nature. One must follow the instructions of the Supreme Lord. Sarvadharma Pariyaja Mamekam Saranam Praja. If one follows any other system of religion, he is subject to punishment by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in many different ways. Therefore, if one follows a concocted system of religion, he is envious not only of others, but also of himself. Consequently, the system of religion is useless. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.8 says, Dharmam smanustita vamsam visvaksena katasuya napadayed yadi ratrim shama eva hi kevalam. Duties, dharma, executed by men, regardless of occupation, are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the Supreme Lord. Following a system of religion that does not awaken one's Krishna consciousness or God consciousness is merely a waste of time and labor. Text 43. Excuse me. My dear Lord, one's occupational duty is instructed in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita according to your point of view, which never deviates from the highest goal of life. Those who follow their occupational duties under your supervision, being equal to all living entities, moving and non-moving, and not considering high and low, are called Aryans. Such Aryans worship you, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Bhagavata Dharma and Krishna Katha are identical. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted everyone to become a guru and preach the instructions of Krishna everywhere from Bhagavad Gita. There it is. That's our duty. Mm-hmm. Srimad Bhagavatam, the Puranas, Vedanta Sutra, similar Vedic literatures. Aryans who are advanced in civilization follow Bhagavad Dharma. Prahlad Maharaj, although merely a child of 5 years, recommended. Komara acharet prajno dharmam bhagavatam iha durlabam manasam janma tadapi adruvam ardadam. Bhagavatam 7.6.1. Prahlad Maharaj preached Bhagavad Dharma among his classmates as soon as an opportunity was afforded by the absence of his teachers from the classroom. He said that from the very beginning of life, from the age of 5, children should be instructed about Bhagavata Dharma, because the human form of life, which is very rarely obtained, is meant for understanding this subject. Bhagavata Dharma means living according to the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, we find that the Supreme Lord has arranged human society in 4 social divisions, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. Again, the Puranas and other Vedic literatures set forth 4 ashramas, which are the divisions of spiritual life. Therefore, Bhagavata Dharma means the Varnashrama Dharma of the four social and four spiritual divisions. The members of human society who strictly follow the principles of Bhagavata Dharma and live according to the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are called Aryans or Arya, a civilization of Aryans who strictly follow the instructions of the Lord and never deviate from those instructions is perfect. Such civilized men do not discriminate between trees, animals, human beings, and other living entities. Pandita Samadarshina, because they are completely educated in Krishna consciousness. They see all living beings equally. Aryans do not kill even a small plant unnecessarily, not to speak of cutting trees for sense gratification. At the present moment, throughout the world, killing is prominent. Men are killing trees, they are killing animals, and they are killing other human beings also, all for sense gratification. This is not an Aryan civilization, as stated here. Stira chara sattva kadambesh va pritag diya. The word apritag diya indicates that the Aryans do not distinguish between lower and higher grades of life. All life should be protected. All living beings have a right to live, even the trees and plants. This is the basic principle of an Aryan civilization. Apart from the lower living entities, those who have come to the platform of human civilization should be divided into a society of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. The Brahmanas should follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures. The criterion must be guna and karma, not birth, but guna and karma. Let's see. Guna means what is one's natural, say, activities, and karma. Karma's, no, wait a minute, I'm mixing it up. Guna means what you're meant to do, and karma is how you do it. In other words, one should acquire the qualities of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, and act accordingly. This is the civilization accepted by the Aryans. Why do they accept it? They accept it because they are very much eager to satisfy Krishna. This is perfect civilization. Aryans do not deviate from the instructions of Krishna, nor do they have doubts about Krishna. But non-Aryans and other demoniac people fail to follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. This is because they have been trained in sense gratification at the cost of all other living entities. Nunam pramata kurute vikarma. Their only business is to indulge in all kinds of forbidden activities for sense gratification. Yad indriya pritaya aprinoti. They deviate in this way because they want to gratify their senses. They have no other occupation or ambition. Their method of civilization is condemned in the previous verse. Ka shimo nija parayo kiyan varta swapara druha dharmena. What is the meaning of a civilization that kills oneself and others? This verse, therefore, advises that everyone become a member of the Aryan civilization and accept the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should conduct his social, political, and religious affairs according to his instructions, meaning Krishna's instructions. We are spending the Krishna consciousness movement to try to establish a society. I'm sorry. We are spreading the Krishna consciousness movement to try to establish a society the way that Krishna wants it. This is the meaning of Krishna consciousness. We are therefore presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is and kicking out all kinds of mental concoction. Fools and rascals interpret Bhagavad Gita in their own way. When Krishna says, Manmana Bhava, my bhakto, madhyajimam namaskuru, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me, they comment that it is not Krishna to whom we must surrender. Thus, they derive imaginary meanings from Bhagavad Gita. The Krishna consciousness movement, however, strictly follows Bhagavad Dharma, the instructions of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam for the complete welfare of human society. One who misinterprets Bhagavad Gita, twisting out some meaning for his sense gratification, is a non-Aryan. Therefore, commentaries on Bhagavad Gita by such persons should be immediately rejected. One should try to follow Bhagavad Gita as it is. In Bhagavad Gita 12.6-7, Lord Sri Krishna says, Yeta sarvani karmani mai sanyasamakvara ananyena eva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate. Te samaham samudarta mrityu sarvasya sagara bhavani na chirat partha mai avesita chetasam. For one who worships me, giving up all his activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, who has fixed his mind upon me, O son of Prita, for him I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. And that was Bhagavad Gita 12 on the point 6-7. Text 44. My Lord, it is not impossible for one to be immediately freed from all material contamination by seeing you, not to speak of seeing you personally, merely by hearing the holy name of your Lordship. Only once, even Chandalas, men of the lowest class, are freed from all material contamination. Under the circumstances, who will not be freed from material contamination simply by seeing you? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 9.5.16, Yan nama shruti matrena pumam bhavati nirmala. Simply by hearing the holy name of the Lord, one is immediately purified. Therefore, in this age of Kali, when all people are very contaminated, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is recommended as the only means of improvement. Harinama, Harinama, Harinameva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gatiranyata. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way. Brihan Naradiya Purana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced this chanting of the holy name 500 years ago, and now through the Krishna consciousness movement, the Hare Krishna movement, we are actually seeing that men who are considered to belong to the lowest class are being delivered from all sinful activities simply by hearing the holy name of the Lord. Samsara, material existence, is a result of sinful actions. Everyone in this material world is condemned, yet there are different grades of prisoners. There are different grades of men. All of them, in all statuses of life, are suffering. To stop the suffering of material existence, one must take to the Hare Krishna movement of Sankirtana, or Krishna conscious life. Herein it is said, Yan Nama Sakrich Charvanat, the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is so powerful that if one heard without offense, that if once heard without offenses, it can purify the lowest men. Kirata Hunanda Pulinda Pulpasa. Such men, who are called Shangalas, are less than Sudras, but they also can be purified simply by hearing the holy name of the Lord. Not to speak of personally seeing the Lord. From our present position, the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be personally seen as the deity in the temple. The deity of the Lord is not different from the Supreme Lord because we cannot see the Supreme Lord with our present blunt eyes. The Lord has kindly consented to come before us in a form we can see. Therefore, the deity in the temple should not be considered material. By offering food to the deity and by decorating and serving the deity, one gets the same result that one derives from serving the Lord personally in Vaikuntha. Oh boy, that's beautiful. Mm. Text 45. Therefore, my dear Lord, simply seeing you has now wiped away all the contamination of sinful activities and their results of material attachment and lusty desires, which always filled my mind and the core of my heart. Whatever is predicted by the great sage Narada Muni cannot be otherwise. In other words, I have obtained your audience as a result of being trained by Narada Muni. Purport. This is the process of the perfect way. One must take lessons from authorities like Narada, Vyasa, and Asita and follow their principles. Then one will be able to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead even with one's own eyes. One only needs training. Atak Sri Krishna Namadi Nabhavikraham Indriyai. With our blunt eyes and other senses, we cannot perceive the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if we engage our senses in the service of the Lord, according to the instructions of the authorities, it will be possible to see him. As soon as one sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the sinful reactions in the core of one's heart are certainly vanquished. As soon as one sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the sinful reactions in the core of one's heart are certainly vanquished. Okay, so darshan is very important to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then all the sinful reactions in the core of one's heart are certainly vanquished. Text 46. O unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead, whatever a living entity does in this material world is well known to you, because you are the Supersoul. In the presence of the sun, there is nothing to be revealed by the light of a glowworm. You know what a glowworm is? You ever see one? Yeah.
Is it the
It's
fireflies?
it's an insect. It's an insect, but it shines.
Yeah, it's a firefly.
Something like that. Yeah. I used to see them. I don't see them anymore. I used to see them previously at night. Similarly, because you know everything in your presence, there is nothing for me to make known. Okay. So, in other words, it says, in the presence of the sun, there is nothing to be revealed by the light of a glowworm. That's a funny statement. Similarly, because you know everything, in your presence, there is nothing for me to make known. Text number 47. My dear Lord, you are the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of this cosmic manifestation. But persons who are too materialistic and who always see separateness do not have eyes with which to see you. They cannot understand your real position, and therefore they conclude that the cosmic manifestation is independent of your opulence. My Lord, you are the supreme pure, and you are full in all six opulences. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Atheistic men think that the cosmic manifestation has come about by chance, by a combination of matter without reference to God. Materialistic, so-called chemists, and atheistic philosophers always try to avoid even the name of God in relation to the cosmic manifestation. For them, God's creation is impossible to understand because they are too materialistic. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Paramahamsa, or the Supreme Pure, whereas those who are sinful, being very much attached to material sense enjoyment and therefore engaging in material activities like asses, are the lowest of men. All their so-called scientific knowledge is null and void because of their atheistic temperament. Thus, they cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, the atheistic temperament. that is too much uh, encountered today by so many people. All this so-called scientific knowledge is null. whoa, Prabhupada just nullified all the scientific knowledge and void because of their atheistic temperament. Yeah, they want everything minus Krishna. And that's not going to work. Thus, they cannot understand the Supreme Personality of God. Text 40. My dear Lord, it is after you endeavor that Lord Brahma, Indra, and the other directors of the cosmic manifestation become occupied with their activities. It is after you perceive the material energy, my Lord, that the senses begin to perceive. The Supreme Personality of Godhead holds all the universes in his heads, like seeds of mustard. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has thousands of hoods. I'm going to read that again. The Supreme Personality of Godhead holds all the universes on his heads, like seeds of mustards. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, that Supreme Personality, who has thousands of hoods. Okay.
Mm.
Text 49. Sukadeva Goswami continued, the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ananta Deva, being very much pleased with the prayers offered by Chitraketu, the king of the Vidyadharas, replied to him as follows. O best of the Kuru dynasty, Maharaj Parikshit. Text 15. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Anantadeva, replied as follows. O King, as a result of your having accepted the instructions spoken about me by the great sages Narada and Angira, you have become completely aware of transcendental knowledge. Because you are now educated in the spiritual science, you have seen me face to face. Therefore, you are now completely perfect. You see what happens when you regularly come to class and hear about Krishna and engage in devotional service, you will be able to see Krishna face to face. And therefore, you become completely perfect. Purport: the perfection of life is to be spiritually educated to understand the existence of the Lord and how he creates, maintains, and annihilates. That's real knowledge. Wait a minute. Okay, so the perfection of life is to be spiritually educated and to understand the existence of the Lord and how he creates, maintains, and annihilates the cosmic manifestation. When one is perfect in knowledge, he can develop his love of Godhead through the association of such perfect persons as Narada, Angira, and the members of their disciplic succession. Then one is able to see the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Although the Lord is unlimited, by his causeless mercy, he becomes visible to the devotee. Wow. Who is then able to see him. In our present position of conditioned life, we cannot see or understand the Supreme Personality of God. Atakshi Krishnanamadi, Navavid Graham Indriyai, Sevan Mukhe Hijivado, Swayam Evaspurat Yada. No one can understand the transcendental nature of the name, form, quality, and pastimes of Sri Krishna through his materially contaminated senses. Only when one becomes spiritually saturated by transcendental service to the Lord are the transcendental name, form, quality, and pastimes of the Lord revealed to him. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.234. If one takes to spiritual life under the direction of Narada Muni or his representative, and thus engages himself in the service of the Lord, he qualifies himself to see the Lord face to face. The Brahma Samhita 538 states, Pramanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksadeva Hidayesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Vajami. This is all about how to see the Lord. I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who is always seen by the devotee, whose eyes are anointed with the pulse of love. He is seen in his eternal form of Shama Sundara, situated with the heart of the devotees, within the heart of the devotees, situated within the heart of the devotees. One must follow the instructions of the spiritual master. Thus, one becomes qualified and later sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead as evinced by Maharaja Chitraketu. Well, evinced means was able to see. It's 51. All living entities, moving and non-moving, are my expansions and are separate from me. I am the supreme soul of all living beings who exist because I manifest them. I am the form of the transcendental vibrations like Omkara and Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, and I am the supreme absolute truth. These two forms of mine, namely the transcendental sound and the eternally blissful spiritual form of the deity, are my external forms. They are not material. Okay, so the deity is the form of the Lord, and they are not, the forms of the Lord are not immaterial. Purport. The science of devotional service has been instructed by Narada and Angira to Chitraketu. Now, because Chitraketu's devotional service, he has seen the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By performing devotional service, one advances step by step. And when one is on the platform of love of Godhead, Prema Pramartha Mahan, he sees the Supreme Lord at every moment. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, when one engages in devotional service 24 hours a day, Tesam Satatayuktanam Bhajatam Pratipurvakam, in accordance with the instructions of the spiritual master, his devotional service becomes more and more pleasing. Then the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is within the core of one's heart, speaks to the devotee. Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yenamam Upayanti Te. Chitraketu Maharaja was first instructed by his gurus, Angira and Narada. And now, having followed their instructions, he has come to the stage of seeing the Supreme Lord face to face. Therefore, the Lord is now instructing him in the essence of knowledge. Chitraketu. The essence of knowledge is that there are two kinds of vastu, or substances. One is real, and the other being illusory or temporary. is sometimes called non-factual. One must consider these two kinds of existence. Well, two kinds of existence, being illusory or temporary. The essence of knowledge is that there are two kinds of vastu, or substances. One is real, and the other, being illusory or temporary, is sometimes called non-factual. Non-factual means that it doesn't really exist. You might see it, but it doesn't really exist. One must consider these two kinds of existence. The real tattva, or truth, consists of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11, Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam Brahma-iti Paramatma-iti Bhagavan iti sabhyate. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. The absolute truth exists eternally in three features. Therefore, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan combined are the substance. When you use the word substance, it means something that is real. It's not, something that's concocted. It's actually real. The categories of emanations from the non-substance are two. Activities and forbidden activities, karma and vikarma. Karma refers to the pious life of material activities performed during the day and the mental activities of dreams at night. These are more or less desired activities. Vikarma, however, refers to illusory activities, which are something like the will o' the wisp. These are activities that have no meaning. For example, modern scientists imagine that life can be produced from chemical combinations. And they are very busy trying to prove this in laboratories throughout the world. Although no one in history has been able to produce the substance of life from material combinations. Such activities are called vikarma. Vikarma is something that is sinful, actually. Yeah, there. Let me read that again. Uh, okay, so it says these the categories of emanations from the non-substance are two: activities and forbidden activities, karma and vikarma. Karma refers to the pious life of material activities performed during the day and the mental activities of dreams at night. These are more or less desired activities. Vikarma, however, refers to illusory activities, which are something like the will o' the wisp. Will o' the wisp means something imaginary. Yeah, there are more or less, okay. Vikarma, however, refers to illusory activities, things that are not real, which are something like the will o' the wisp. These are activities that have no meaning. For example, modern scientists imagine that life can be produced from chemical combinations, and they are very busy trying to prove this in laboratories throughout the world. Although no one in history has been able to produce the substance of life from material combinations, such activities are called vikarma. Yeah, vikarma means They are doing something that's impossible.
Yeah. So it's very enlightening to know that Vikarma is not just forbidden activity, but it is also an activity which is illusory.
Yeah, yes. Like going to the moon.
Yeah.
All material activities are actually illusory, and progress in illusion is simply a waste of time. I like that. Progress in illusion. It's simply waste of time. Yeah, like going to the moon. That's a waste of time and money. We don't even understand the earth. How are we going to understand the moon? Although we can see it at night, the moon, but there's no way that anyone is going to go there and live there and create colonies of people on the moon or Mars. All that is nonsense. People talk about it, you know. Oh, and in a few years we'll be able to have regular flights to the moon or regular flights to Mars. That's never going to happen. All material activities are actually illusory and progress in illusion in simply a waste of time. These illusory activities are called akarya, and one must learn of them from the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.17, karmano hi api bodhavyam cha vikarmana, akarmanas cha bodhavyam gahana karmano gati. Srimad Bhagavad Gita 4.17. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. One must learn of these directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who, as Anantadeva, is instructing King Chitraketu because of the advanced stage of devotional service he achieved by following the instructions of Narada and Angira. There it is. We should always be under the tutelage, under the protection and instruction of bona fide devotees. That way we don't waste any time and engage in impossible, nonsensical activities like trying to go to the moon. And trying to make the body eternal. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make the body. How can a body be eternal? It's impossible. But yet they're trying to do that by different types of experiences, or not experiences, but different types of uh, what you would call uh, trying to do something that is impossible. Herein it is said, Aham vai sarva bhutan ni. The Lord is everything, sarva bhutani, including the living entities and the material or physical elements. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 7.4-5, Umir apo nalo vayu, kamano buddhir evacha, ahankara ityame, pina pakritirastata, aparayamitastvanyam pakritim vidime param, Jiva Bhutam Mahabaho Yaryadam Varyate Jagat. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and the false ego. All together are these eight comprise my separated material energies. Besides this inferior nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, There is a superior nature of mind, which consists of the living entities who are struggling with material nature and are sustaining the universe. The living entity tries to lord it over the material or physical elements, but both the physical elements and the spiritual spark are energies emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, I like that, the spiritual spark. Therefore, the Lord says, Aham vai sarvabhutani. I am everything. Just as heat and light emanate from fire, these two energies, the physical elements and the living entities, emanate from the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the Lord says, Aham vai sarvabhutani. I expand the physical and spiritual categories. Again, the Lord, as the super soul, guides the living entities who are conditioned by the physical atmosphere. Therefore, he is called Bhutatma, Bhuta Bhavana. He gives the living entity the intelligence with which to improve his position so that he may return home back to Godhead. Or if he does not want to go back to Godhead, the Lord gives him the intelligence with which to improve his material position. Oh boy, that is something that we should carefully pay attention to. Everything depends on what we want. So if we want Krishna, okay, then Krishna will do everything to help us. If we don't want Krishna, we want sense gratification, well, Krishna, throws his arms up in the air and says, okay, that's what you want, that's what you're going to get. So you have to be very careful on what we want. That's why it says here, the Lord, as the super soul, guides the living entities who are conditioned by the physical atmosphere. Therefore, he is called Bhutatma Bhutabhavana. He gives the living entity the intelligence with which to improve his position so that he may return home back to Godhead. Or if he does not want to go back to Godhead, the Lord gives him the intelligence with which to improve his material position. This is confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Sarvasya piti sanivisto matak smritir jnanam apahanam cha. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. From within, the Lord gives the living being the intelligence with which to work. Therefore, the previous verse said that after the Supreme Personality of Godhead endeavors, our endeavors begin. We cannot independently endeavor or act upon anything. Therefore, the Lord is Bhuta Bhavana. Another specific feature of the knowledge given in this verse is that Sabda Brahma is also a form of the Supreme Lord. In his eternal blissful form, Lord Krishna is accepted by Arjuna as Param Brahma. A living entity in the conditioned stage accepts something illusory as substantial. This is called Maya or avidya. Yeah, like eternal life in the material body. That is will o' the wisp. That is something that people are trying to do, but it's not possible. And that's what's going on nowadays. They want to make the material body immortal. It's not possible. But yet they're doing it, trying to do that in different ways. And it's never going to be successful. This is called Maya or avidya, ignorance. Therefore, according to the Vedic knowledge, one must become a devotee, and one must then distinguish between avidya, something that is not real, and vidya, something that is real, which are elaborately explained in the Ishopanishad. When one is actually on the platform of vidya or knowledge, he can personally understand the personality of Godhead in his forms, like those of Lord Rama, Lord Krishna, and Sankarsana. The Vedic knowledge is described as the breathing of the Supreme Lord, and activities begin on the basis of Vedic knowledge. Therefore, the Lord says that he endeavors or breathes the material universes. One second. Therefore, the Lord says that when he endeavors or breathes, the material universe comes into existence and various activities gradually develop. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Pranava Sarvavedesu. I am the syllable Om in all Vedic mantras. So that's due to breath. He breathes the Om Pranava, and then things happen. That's the power of the spiritual vibrations that emanate from the mouth of the Lord. I am the syllable Om in all the Vedic mantras. Vedic knowledge begins with the vibration of the transcendental sound pranava, Omkara. The same transcendental sound is Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Abhinat Bam Nama Namino. There is no difference between the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself. Okay, so the sacred Om is also uh, equal to chanting Hare Krishna mantra. Text 52. In this world of matter, which the conditioned soul accepts as consisting of enjoyable resources, the conditioned soul expands, thinking that he is the enjoyer of the material world. Similarly, the material world expands in the living entity as a source of enjoyment. In this way, they both expand. But because they are my energies, they are both pervaded by me. As the Supreme Lord, I am the cause of these effects, and one should know that both of them rest in me. Okay, so there is nothing independent of Krishna. We have to understand that nothing, whether you want to engage in Krishna consciousness or you want to engage in nonsense activities, you cannot do it without Krishna's help. But Krishna prefers that we all should want to be Krishna conscious, not nonsense sense gratifiers. But if we insist, being adamant, then Krishna says, okay, that's what you want. That's what you're going to get. But that puts a person in a impossible situation. They can never have let's say, they cannot have any activities eternally of sense gratification. It's going to be put. It's just nature that wanton activities will come to an end. They cannot be eternal. But Krishna consciousness can be eternal. So therefore, why waste our time in things that are avidya, ignorant? We should engage in spiritual activities. all the temporary activities. It's like building sand castles at the beach. Sometimes they make these very elaborate sand castles at the beach. And when they come back the next day, it's not there anymore.
Gone.
And the high tide comes in and completely annihilates that beautiful sandcastle that was built. It took hours under the sun to build it, but it only lasts a very short time. So why even waste the time making sandcastles that they're going to be destroyed very quickly? The Mayavada philosophy sees everything as being equal in quality with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the Supreme Brahman, and therefore sees everything as worshipable. This dangerous theory of the Mayavada school has turned people in general toward atheism. Yeah, they say, well, look, we're not what you would call, we are open to everything. We're not, you know, what you would call people who um, we're not demons in the sense that we say that something is good and something is bad. We accept everything.
We accept everything.
Yeah. This dangerous theory of the Mayavada school has turned people in general toward atheism. Yeah. Why? Because the Mayavada philosophy sees everything as being equal in quality with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the Supreme Brahman, and therefore sees everything as worshipable. This dangerous theory of the Mayavada school has turned people in general toward atheism. Yeah, that's just like worshiping the golden calf. That's nonsense, you know. And so you made a effigy of a golden calf, and you start worshiping that as if it is some spiritual being, you know, or some spiritual asset. But actually, it's a waste of time. It's simply a icon of ignorance. So, and that's what the dangerous theory of the Mayavada school is. It has turned people in general toward atheism. Atheism means you don't believe in God. On the strength of this theory, one thinks that he is God, but this is not a fact. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Bhayatatam idam sarvam jagat avyaktamurtina. The fact is that the entire cosmic manifestation is an expansion of the Supreme Lord's energies, okay, which are manifested in the physical elements and the living entities. The living entities wrongly consider the physical elements to be resources meant for their enjoyment. And they think themselves to be the enjoyers. However, neither of them is independent. They are both energies of the Lord. Well, if they're energies of the Lord, then everything should be used only in the service of the Lord. That's what's missing. They don't understand that. People don't understand that. The original cause for the material energy and spiritual energy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, although the expansion of the Lord's energies is the original cause, one should not think that the Lord himself has expanded in different ways. Yeah, the Lord is always one. He's never in any way diminished or annihilated. To condemn the theories of the Mayavadis, the Lord clearly says in Bhagavad Gita, Matstani Sarvabhutani Nachaham Tesu Avastita. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Everything rests upon him, and everything is but an expansion of his energies. But he does not mean that everything is as worshipable as the Lord himself. Yeah, someone might say, well, everything is God, so I can worship a dog. The material expansion is temporary, but the Lord is not temporary. The living entities are parts of the Lord, but they are not the Lord himself. The living entities in the material world are not inconceivable. That means they are conceivable. Right? A double negative means it's the opposite. But the Lord is. The living entities in this material world are not inconceivable. But the Lord is. In other words, you cannot see the Lord. However, if you become a devotee, then the Lord will reveal himself. But you cannot force the Lord to reveal himself. The theory that the Lord's energies, being expansions of the Lord, are as good as the Lord is mistaken. The theory that the Lord's energies is like a tree, but you can't worship the tree and say, this is the truth, this is the Lord. The tree is the energy of the Lord, but the Lord is he's the supreme personality of Godhead. He's different than the tree. So some people, they will worship, trees, or they'll worship dogs or whatever, but that doesn't mean that it's equal to worshiping the Lord. And we can see this in the history. There's always been people that worship effigies or, made up gods, right? And they worship. It's even in the Bible, when Moses went up to
goes down the mountain.
Yeah, and he comes back with the
Ten Commandments.
Ten Commandments.
These stones.
In the meantime, the people that were waiting for him to come back, they made an effigy of some kind of something to worship, right? And he got so angry. Moses became so angry, he broke the tablets, the Ten Commandments. And then he had to go back again to get them. In the meantime, while he was trying to get the Ten Commandments, the people reverted back to their low class worship of some kind of an animal. They made an effigy of an animal, and they started worshiping it. Okay, so now, what time is it? 8 o'clock. I think we're over time, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, we'll stop there at the Moses. Okay, any questions, my dear devotees? Any questions or comments? Okay, our takeaway for today. To condemn the theories of the Mayavadis, the Lord clearly says in Bhagavad Gita, Matstani Sarvabhutani, Na Chaham Tesha Avastita. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Everything rests upon him, and everything is but an expansion of his energies. But this does not mean that everything is as worshipable as the Lord himself. The material expansion is temporary, but the Lord is not temporary. The living entities are parts of the Lord, but they are not the Lord himself. The living entities in this material world are not inconceivable, but the Lord is. The theory that the Lord's energies, being expansions of the Lord, are as good as the Lord is mistaken. The Lord's energies. Well, that's everything. Everything is the energy of the Lord, but not everything is the Lord. Yeah. So that defeats the philosophy of the Mayavadis, which says they believe everything is the Lord's. Right? Yeah, there's the philosophy of the philosophy that you can worship anything. You can worship a dog, you can worship a tree, you can worship an ant, but that's not the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. But in ancient times, people would worship things like trees and animals and dead people. Sometimes they would keep the body of a dead person in their house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you told us to research on that.
What's that?
In previous classes, you asked us to research on that.
And what did you find out?
That there is one tribe who does that. They keep the dead body in the house
Yeah.
as if they are living, and then they keep serving them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you can make like a picture of the dead person, and offer food or whatever. But
Indonesian tribe, yeah.
huh?
Indonesian tribe
Uh-huh.
called Torajan.
They're the ones that worship the dead body.
Yeah, they keep the body in the house.
Yeah. However, we worship Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We don't have to deal with dead bodies. Just imagine how horrible that is. Yeah. Okay. So I think we'll stop right there on the last point of dead bodies. We want to deal with the live bodies, the eternal bodies, like Krishna. He has an eternal body. We don't want to deal with dead bodies. They're not eternal. Okay, our takeaway for today. Although the expansions of the Lord's energies, one second. The original cause for the material energy and spiritual energy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, although the expansion of the Lord's energies is the Godhead, However, although the expansion of the Lord's energies is the original cause, one should not think that the Lord himself has expanded in different ways. Yeah, the body of the Lord never changes. To condemn the theories of the Mayavadis, the Lord clearly says in Bhagavad Gita, Matstani sarvabhutani na chaham tesu avastita. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Everything rests upon him, and everything is but an expansion of his energies. But this does not mean that everything is as worshipable as the Lord himself. The material expansion is temporary, but the Lord is not temporary. The living entities are parts of the Lord, but they are not the Lord himself. The living entities in this material world are not inconceivable, meaning they are conceivable. The living entities in this material world are not inconceivable, but the Lord is. They are not inconceivable, which means you can't see them, but the Lord is. Oh, wait a minute, let's read that again. The living entities in this material world are not inconceivable. That means they are conceivable, but the Lord is inconceivable. You cannot really understand Krishna unless he reveals himself. We can't force that. We have to have, we have to be completely surrendered to the Lord. So the living entities in this material world are not inconceivable, meaning they are conceivable, but the Lord is inconceivable. The theory that the Lord's energies, being expansions of the Lord, are as good as the Lord is mistaken. Yeah, like a dog is an expansion of the energy of the Lord, but we can't worship the dog. Some people do that, but no. So the living entities in this material world are not inconceivable, meaning you can see them. They have substance, but the Lord is inconceivable, meaning that you might not be able to see the Lord. The theory that the Lord's energies, being expansions of the Lord, are as good as the Lord is mistaken. Yeah, everything is not the Lord. But the Mayavadis want to say, oh, everything is one. So that philosophy of absolute oneness is nonsense. Okay. Let's see. So it said our takeaway for today is the following. Mayatatam idam sarvam jagat avyaktamurtina. The fact is that the entire cosmic manifestation is an expansion of the Supreme Lord's energies, which are manifested in the physical elements and the living beings. The living entities wrongly consider the physical elements to be resources meant for their enjoyment, and they think themselves to be the enjoyers. However, neither of them is independent. They are both energies of the Lord. The original cause for the material energy and the spiritual energy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, although the expansion of the Lord's energies is the original cause, one should not think that the Lord himself has expanded in different ways. To condemn the theories of the Mayavadis, the Lord clearly says in Bhagavad Gita, Matstani Sarvabhutani, Na Chaham Tesu Avastita. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Everything rests upon him, and everything is but an expansion of his energies. But this does not mean that that everything is as worshipable as the Lord himself. The material expansion is temporary, but the Lord is not temporary. The living entities are parts of the Lord, but they are not the Lord himself. The living entities in this material world are not inconceivable. Yeah, but the Lord is. So not inconceivable means conceivable, but the Lord is. The theory that the Lord's energies, being expansions of the Lord, are as good as the Lord is mistaken. Okay, when it says the living entities in this world are not inconceivable. It means that they are conceivable. But the Lord is inconceivable. He can be conceivable or he can be not conceivable. And the Lord is eternally present. So he's not temporary. And he is inconceivable and inconceivable. He can, at any time, you might not be able to see the Lord. It doesn't mean that he's dead or anything like that. It just means that he has powers that we don't have. Okay. All right, I think we'll stop right there. Are there any questions or comments?
One clarification.
Yes.
The tribes, those are worshipping different animals, considering they are very superior in some kind of power. So is it a stepping stone for them? Or they are more on atheist side or Mayavadi side? At least they're worshipping something, or they are Mayavadis. Now I'm just trying to understand, they are like more on Mayavadi side, or it is a stepping stone because they are respecting one of the Lord's energy, like in form of very powerful animal or a tree or.
Yeah, that's true. It is a stepping stone. Instead of worshiping nothing,
Yeah.
they're worshiping something.
Something.
They believe that there's something that is tangible, worthy of worship, but it's misguided. That means that they can be guided properly. But if someone is an absolute, what you would call a atheist, then he doesn't accept anything as worshipable. When someone accepts something as worshipable, even if they're worshiping the wrong thing, they can be corrected. But if someone is like is a absolute negative person and doesn't believe that there's anything worshipable, that means that you can't really educate him. He rejects anything that is holy. Even if you worship something that is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the fact that you accept that there is something greater than you, that means that you can eventually become, a devotee by the proper knowledge. But if someone is hell bent on being an atheist, you can't do anything with that person. They don't believe that there's anything sacred. Therefore, they purposely engage in all kinds of sinful activities to prove that there's nothing sacred. Those are very dangerous people. Very dangerous people. Okay, all right, we'll stop here. And so our takeaway for today is the Mayavada philosophy sees everything as being equal in quality with the Supreme Personality Godhead or the Supreme Brahman, and therefore sees everything as worshipable. This dangerous theory of the Mayavada school has turned people in general toward atheism. On the strength of their theory, one thinks that he is God, but this is not a fact. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Maya Tatamidam Sarvam Jagat Lavyati Murtina. The fact is that the entire cosmic manifestation is an expansion of the Supreme Lord's energies, which are manifested in the physical elements and the living entities. The living entities wrongly consider the physical elements to be resources meant for their enjoyment, and they think themselves to be the enjoyers. However, neither of them is independent. They are both energies of the Lord. The original cause for the material energy and the spiritual energy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, although the expansion of the Lord's energies is the original cause, one should not think that the Lord himself has expanded in different ways. To condemn the theories of the Mayavadis, the Lord clearly says in Bhagavad Gita, Matstani Sarvabhutani Nachaham Te Srovastata. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Everything rests upon him, and everything is but an expansion of his energies. But this does not mean that everything is but an expansion. This does not mean that everything is as worshipable as the Lord himself. Yeah, if you think, well, this dog is the energy of the Lord, so let's worship the dog. No, that doesn't make sense. The material expansion is temporary, but the Lord is not temporary. Yeah, the dog is not eternal; it's temporary. So therefore, it's not really worshipable.
So does that hold good for deities also, Maharaj?
Good point. Well, there's a difference between a deity and a statue. A deity that's consecrated with the proper way is not different than the Lord. But if you just make any statue and start worshiping it, it's not the same as worshiping the deity. So there's a whole, culture of worshiping the deity that's specific and can be followed strictly. But anybody can make a effigy of something and worship it, but that doesn't mean that it's bona fide. So how do we differentiate between some effigy that is worshipped and a bona fide deity that's being worshipped? Well, we have to look at the Shastra. Anyone can make a statue, just like that statue of Gandhi, right? Made out of materials, and they worship it. Not every day, but they worship it at least once a year. They worship it at the library in Seattle. So does that mean that Gandhi's form is worshipful? No. When he was living, was he worshipable? No. He doesn't have an eternal body. And therefore making a effigy of it and worship it is actually not bona fide. But Krishna has an eternal body. That's something you can worship. That's someone that can be worshipped. But someone who has a mundane body and is not, let's say, not bona fide according to Shastra, you can't worship that person or that thing. It has to be bona fide and have a history of being authentic. Right? So Krishna actually existed, and people made, different, and his body is explained, and there's a lot of specific knowledge about what he looks like, and so forth. So it's not a worship of something imaginary. But if you worship a dog, or you worship uh, like a tree or things like that, that is not bona fide. It's worship that is due to ignorance. But if you worship Krishna, there's no ignorance involved. Krishna actually exists eternally. And he's not just a temporary existence, he's an eternal existence. And then there's a history of Krishna. Is there a history of Gandhi? Yes, there's a history of Gandhi. But that doesn't mean that he is worshipable. People are worshiping him without the proper, let's say, knowledge of worshiping someone who has a temporary body. We worship Krishna because he doesn't have a temporary body; he's an eternal body, and we have all the information about Krishna. But if you worship, the body of an effigy of Gandhi, it's basically a waste of time. It's just a statue, that's all. There's a difference between a deity and a statue. So we should not worship things that are temporary. Okay. So it says here, to condemn the theories of the Mayavadis, the Lord clearly says in Bhagavad Gita, Matstani Sarvabhutani Nachahante Svavastita. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Everything rests upon him, and everything is but an expansion of his energies. But this does not mean that everything is as worshipable as the Lord himself. There it is right there. So if you worship Gandhi as God, it's not worshiping God. The material expansion is temporary, but the Lord is not temporary. The living entities are parts of the Lord, but they are not the Lord himself. The living entities in the material world are not inconceivable. So living entities in this material world are not inconceivable. That means you can conceive them, but the Lord is inconceivable, right? The theory that the Lord's energies, being expansions of the Lord, are as good as the Lord is mistaken. Yeah, Lord, the tree is Lord's energy. The body of Gandhi is a material thing. So that doesn't make it worshipable. Therefore, it says the living entities are parts of the Lord, but they are not the Lord himself. The living entities in this material world are not inconceivable. It means you can see them, but the Lord is. You can't see the Lord if he doesn't. He's not forced to, show himself. The theory that the Lord's energies, being expansions of the Lord, are as good as the Lord is mistaken. Yeah, what a tree is an energy of the Lord, right? That doesn't mean you can worship the tree. Okay, so we will stop right there and chant Hare Krishna. That you can do. You can worship the Hare Krishna mantra. That is something real. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Thank you very much. And worship the holy names of the Lord. That is something real. Don't worship Gandhi. Hare. They worship Gandhi once a year outside the library.
Bellevue.
Yeah. The rest of the year, the birds pass stool, so-called in his body. But once a year, they'll wash off all the stool and urine and everything, and they worship him. Yeah, that's worship of in the mode of ignorance. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Yeah, that's a fact. All year round, his statue is outside, and birds are passing stool on it. Sometimes it's freezing cold, sometimes it rains, sometimes it snows and whatever. And people walk past it, ignoring it. But once a year, they'll do puja. So therefore, the whole thing is bogus. It's like if you want to worship something like the form of Gandhi, you should at least put it inside, right? But no, they put it outside so the birds can pass stool on it. And once a year they do some puja. Yeah. Well, even devotees, like if you go to some devotees have made like in
Vancouver, Maharaj.
Yeah, Vancouver.
Yeah.
Big
Mahaprabhu.
deity of Lord Chaitanya outside all year round. And they've been trying to build a temple, right? And I told them years ago, I said, you'll never build a temple. You'll never be able to build a new temple unless you get rid of this big deity of Lord Chaitanya that's outside. I said it's sacrilegious to have a deity outside, right? But no, they never listened to me, and they still have not their temple. And it's really sad. I said, as soon as you get rid of that outside deity of Lord Chaitanya, you'll be able to build your temple. They didn't listen to me. And they still do not have a new temple.